Hey, what's going on, guys? Luke here, and we are days away from the 2022 NRL season kicking off. So I thought it was fitting that we go through and do our ladder predictions. Now, this is something that I do every year. This is something that people love to go through at the end of the season. Even years on, to go back and take a look at the 2022 season and go, geez, Luke, you're pretty wrong with that one. And quite frankly, I'm pretty wrong with a lot of the things. So my predictions down to Dally M's all the way down to ladder predictions, they were quite comical at times. So I thought it'd be fun to go through and do my 2022 season predictions and sort of see how we go with the ladder. Now, this is something that I haven't thought in depth for. I feel like a lot of other people have sat there, they went through the ladder predictor on the NRL website and picked every game, and they've analysed who teams have signed and what's their form in the trials, what's their form against teams last year, how did they go last year. I haven't done that. I pretty much just sat down while watching TV and went, who's my 1 to 16? I've sort of just ranked who I think are the better sides and sort of just had a gut feeling for some of the sides as well, and went, yeah, I think they'll probably come 10th or they'll come 11th or they'll come 2nd, they'll come 3rd, they'll come 1st. I haven't really based this off stats or anything. So as I somewhat expressed, I'm not really a stats guy, I'm more of a gut feeling. So if you're after someone who's after stats, maybe Supercoach points or something like that, I'm not your guy. But I am going to be doing my predictions for 2022. Looking at the ladder, I'm going to go from 16 to number 1. Look, there's going to be so many variations throughout the season. If a team's in the bottom 8, generally, I don't really care whether they come 10th or whether they come 15th. I mean, like, Wooden Spoon is different, but the rest of them, like, whether they come 9th to 15th, it doesn't really matter. They didn't make the 8, I don't care. Sort of similar for the top 4. I mean, it doesn't really matter too much. But obviously, it's super hard to predict these things, especially when we haven't even seen a proper game of football. We've seen trials, but we haven't really seen any teams go all out. We haven't seen them play with proper interchanges and stuff. So it is going to be interesting to see how things play out this year. But look, I'm not confident. I want to say that much. I'm definitely not confident going into this one. But we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to start off with something that you already know. I did pick, in my previous video, I went through and I picked my Wooden Spoon premiers, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to start off with my minor premiers. I actually went with the Parramatta Eels. Controversial, I know. Picking Parramatta actually do well, it's always going to be controversial. It's like me sitting there and saying the Tigers are going to make the top 8. It's just something that you're like, whoa, what the hell? What are you on about? But with the Parramatta Eels, I thought they looked good enough last year. I think they've still got all of the guys that they need this year. Obviously, next year they're all leaving, but this year they have all the troops on board. They all seem to be fit. They all seem to be raring to go. I think they're going to have a really good season in comparison to some of the other sides. Just in terms of the 1 to 16, I'm trying to take into account like Origin, that sort of stuff. Obviously, Penrith have Nathan Cleary out. So there's some factors that I'm looking at that I'm thinking, yeah, Para are going to have a pretty good start. And I think they'll just have a pretty good season in general. Does that necessarily reflect them being the best team? I don't know. But just in terms of the actual ladder itself, I think they're going to finish first. So Parramatta in at number 1. Going to the opposite end of the spectrum, going with the North Queensland Cowboys picking up the Wooden Spoon. This is a very popular opinion, as I've seen with some of the other videos and even just Instagram posts and that sort of stuff. Everybody is pretty adamant that the North Queensland Cowboys are going to be getting the Wooden Spoon, but a team that I think is also a hot contender for that is, I think you're expecting me to say the West Tigers. Yes, they are, but I'm going to go with the Newcastle Knights. Mitchell Pearce is gone. Kalen Ponga is very good, but Kalen Ponga is quite injury prone. And we've seen in the past, if Kalen Ponga is out, there's not too much that the Knights do. And that's with Mitchell Pearce. Now, Mitchell Pearce is gone. I think their statistics, I just said I'm not a statistics guys, but their win record with Mitchell Pearce and without him. With him, they're pretty good. Without him, absolutely diabolical. So they're definitely without him. There's no injuries or anything. He's just straight up not there. They've got Jay Clifford. They do have Adam Clune. I do rate Adam Clune, but just in terms of him up against Mitchell Pearce, definitely a mismatch. Look, Dan Gaggai's back at the club, but apart from that, haven't really signed anybody. I don't really see too much promise for the Newcastle Knights, especially with Jaden Brayley being out. So I think they're your 2 proper contenders for the Wooden Spoon. Then after that, at number 14, I did touch on them a little bit earlier, but I have gone with the West Tigers. I think they are a contender for the Wooden Spoon, but I do like the signing of Hastings. Same with the centre that they got from the Super League. I do rate those signings. And even guys like Leilua and a few of those guys. Adam Dewey, when he eventually comes back into the side, maybe Brooks can find some form. Probably not, but who knows. But I think with them, I know the popular opinion is like, oh, just chuck them in at number 9. Every year, no matter what, they seem to come 9th. But I think this is the year that they do compete for the Spoon. Do I think they get the Wooden Spoon? No, obviously. But at the same time, if they got it, wouldn't be super surprised. Now moving on to number 13. This is going to be a controversial one. I've gone with the New Zealand Warriors. Now, Shaun Johnson has gone back to the club. A little bit injury prone, very injury prone, let's be honest. And the actual side themselves doesn't look that great. Another year outside of New Zealand as well. Something's got to give, man. They've got Adam Fanua-Blake and Shaun Johnson, but apart from that, and also Reece Walsh, obviously, but apart from that, they haven't really got too much talent to work with. I feel like a lot of times they get away with the fact that they are all New Zealanders playing for the New Zealand club, and just also that style of play. When it works, it definitely works. So they're a team I can't see getting the wooden spoon. Just despite like the actual squad itself, you look at them, I feel like there's a good chance you'd be like, oh, they're sort of a wooden spoon caliber side. But I just don't feel like they're really in the mix to actually get the wooden spoon. Something about the Warriors' game style that they just come up against some teams, and other teams just can't handle that sort of game style. So I think they're going to win enough games to avoid the wooden spoon, yet not be any real contenders for the top 8. I think Shaun Johnson is going to help them though. Now moving on to 12th spot, I've actually gone with the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Now before the trials, once again, I just went and said I don't care about the trials and all that sort of stuff, but I actually did really like what I saw from the Dragons. Add in the fact that last year they were actually looking pretty good before the whole barbecue scandal happened, and then you add in guys like Tyrell Sloan, Bud Sullivan, Junior Monet, I think that's how you say it, but a lot of the youngsters have come through the ranks, and they look like they're ready for first grade, in particular Sloan. He looks like he's going to be an absolute gun. You still got Cody Ramsey there if things don't really work out, but I think they do have a pretty decent side. The coach seems to be someone who I would deem as not a very good coach, someone who sort of lets him down a little bit, but the general consensus from all the experts is that he's a pretty decent coach. So I don't know, with the Dragons, they've got Ben Hunt there, and I think while ever Ben Hunt is fit, there's definitely a chance of making the 8, but there's also a chance of getting a wooden spoon. That's sort of just how the Dragons team is this year. There's so many youngsters, like Tarek Sims this year, can't even make the starting side. I know he's a little bit injured apparently, hasn't really done too much in the off-season, but look, the Dragons side, they aren't really star-studded, so we've seen teams in the past who've been like this who have done quite well. We've also seen teams like this who you go, oh, they've got all these youngsters, they must be pretty good, and then they come out and get towed up every single week and end up with a wooden spoon. Looking at you, Bulldogs, even though we're a little bit different, but you get my point. Speaking of the Bulldogs, they are in at number 11 for me. Now, I feel like a lot of people have them a little bit further back. I feel like a lot of people have them a little bit further forward, but for me, I feel like they're going to win enough games to sort of compete with the 8. I should just point this out. In terms of the top 8, I feel like the top 4, just like last year, I think they're going to be well above everybody. I think they're going to be so far ahead. Maybe not number 5, but I think for the most part, the top 8 is going to be pretty well decided. It's just a matter of maybe like 7th and 8th, maybe even just 8th. But look, I feel like it's going to be up for grabs between a lot of teams, and I think the Bulldogs are one of them. I think the Bulldogs can compete throughout the year. Start of the season, taking on the Cowboys, I think if they get a good start to the season, build some confidence, I think that's exactly what the Bulldogs team needs. Whether they get that, I don't know. But look, I'm expecting a better season than last year. Obviously, they came last. I'm a Bulldog supporter. If you've been watching the channel, you know that. Bulldogs are a team that, kind of like the Dragons, got a lot of new faces, a lot of youngsters, a lot of guys who could be good, a lot of guys who could be bad. So, sort of, I don't know. I don't know where to put them. Same for the next side as well. The Brisbane Broncos had them just ahead of the Bulldogs. Basically because of Adam Reynolds. Adam Reynolds is a sure thing. We know he's a layup. We know he's going to be good. The rest of them, I'm not exactly sold on. Looks like Jermaine Asako is going to get the nod at fullback, which just baffles me. I just can't understand that. I really don't rate Kevin Walters at all. But the thing ahead of them for the Bulldogs, like I feel like the Bulldogs have a much better squad, but they don't have Adam Reynolds. They don't have a guy like him. They've got a guy like Burton who is pretty unproven in first grade as a halves player, whereas Adam Reynolds, yes, he's getting on in age, but he just played in a grand final, nearly steered the ship for the Rabbitohs to win a grand final. He's done it before. He's played for New South Wales. He's really done it all, Adam Reynolds. Great goal kicker, just great in-game kicker in general. Look, I'm expecting a decent season for the Broncos. Definitely an improvement on previous years. And they've got enough big guns like your Tony Staggs, like your Payne Haasers, like your Adam Reynolds. I think they can get the job done against some of these shittier sides I've already named. But I can't really see them competing at all against the top 8 sides. Now moving on to the last team that I expect to not make the top 8. And this is going to be a very controversial one. And this is something that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm not super confident about this one, but I'm going to go with the Gold Coast Titans. Now, I think a lot of people are expecting them to pick up where they left from last year. I think they're expecting a pretty good season from the Titans, and they do have a pretty decent side on paper, but Jamal Fogarty leaving, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Jamal Fogarty. I don't think he's an absolute superstar halfback by any means, but just in terms of him at the Titans, I think he just had some stability there, whereas now they're going with a rookie, essentially. I know they're not exactly a rookie, but they're going with Brimson, who hasn't really played first grade in terms of the halves. He's only ever played fullback. You got Jaden Campbell there, who could find some second-year syndrome, possibly. Wouldn't be the first player. And then, obviously, you got Sexton or whoever ends up playing, Tanner Boyd maybe, whoever ends up playing number 7 for them. I can see them sort of having a lot of trouble. And also, you got guys like David Fafita. He was coming off the bench at times last year because he was super inconsistent. So they do have a lot of inconsistent players. They tried plenty of players in the past in the halves. Is Toby Sexton going to be the one who can nail down that 7 role? Possibly, but I do think Jamal Fogarty, I think he will be a loss, not because he's an amazing player, but because the guys who are behind him, I think they're not quite ready for first grade. But we'll see. I could be surprised. I think they will win enough games to compete for the 8, but I can see them just missing it purely because I don't really rate their spine that much. Jaden Campbell obviously is quite good, but in terms of the number 9, in terms of the actual halves themselves, quite unproven. So that was bottom 8. Now it's time to talk about the top 8. Now starting off with number 8, I have picked the Canberra Raiders. Now I'm expecting a bit of a bounce back for the Raiders. I just got done talking about Jamal Fogarty. Obviously, he's out for pretty much the whole season, or at least a good part of the season. Look, he was a big signing for them, and I did like the look of them in the trials with Fogarty in the side. But I feel like Sam Williams can step in and do a job, and I feel like Jack Whiten's going to be back this year. I feel like the Raiders themselves are going to be back this year. I don't think they're going to be playing just guys for the sake of it. In the first round, Jared Croker has been dropped. He'll probably find himself back in the side, but it just shows you that Ricky Stewart is willing to drop players if he doesn't think they're capable. Josh Hodgson's last year at the club as well. I'm expecting big things from him. Maybe not as big as what we've seen in the past, but I'm expecting a decent season from him. Expecting a good season from Jack Whiten. And if Jack Whiten gets going, Joe Tarpany, he's looked absolutely amazing in the All-Star game and the trials. I think he's ready to step up. And then you add in Papali'i as well. I think the Raiders are primed to move up the ladder. I don't know whether they're going to be in the top 8, but I have picked them at number 8, but I can easily see them dropping down quite a bit as well. They're not a side who's a shoe-in for me. Similar with the Titans. There's a couple good players, a couple bad players, but I have gone with the Canberra Raiders. Moving on to number 7, I've gone with the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Obviously made the grand final last year, but they have lost Adam Reynolds. They have lost Dan Gagai as well. I feel like that's something that gets glossed over, is Dan Gagai leaving. I feel like a lot of times they just passed it to Gagai and he got them out of trouble. Now that's not something that in previous season I looked at Dan Gagai and I was like, he's a decent winger, doesn't really do too much. But this past season, maybe the past couple of seasons, he's actually been quite good for the Rabbitohs. So him moving to the Knights, I don't see it as a big signing for the Knights really, but I think he is a big loss for the Rabbitohs when you add in that Adam Reynolds is gone as well. So they do have a rookie halfback coming in. Cody Walker, a lot more responsibility. There's always been a lot of talk about him not handling it on the big stage. I thought he did quite well in the grand final, but obviously threw that little intercept pass and rebounding off a grand final lost, let alone just a grand final appearance. But losing in a grand final, there's not too many sides who come back better the next year. Obviously, Penrith did it last year, but I can't really see the Rabbitohs doing it. I think they're going to fall down the ladder. I think a lot of it's going to be due to Adam Reynolds and also just trying to find them feet. This is the first time since 2012 that they haven't had Adam Reynolds, so it makes sense that they would fall down the ladder. So we've got a lot of good plays. Still got your Cameron Murray, still got your Damien Cook. Cody Walker's obviously there. Latrell Mitchell is there. If he stays on the field, Latrell Mitchell, I think he can carry the side to a lot of wins as well as Cody Walker. But I think a lot of the Rabbitohs season depends on Latrell Mitchell and whether he's on the park or not. Now we move on to the final 2 teams of the bottom 4 of the top 8. We're going to be starting off with the Cronulla Sharks. I find them in at number 6. Compared to number 5, I think you're going to be a bit shocked at who I have at number 5. But at number 6, I've got the Cronulla Sharks. And I think they're another side that is going to be decent. A lot of new signings. Actually, not a lot of new signings, but some key signings. But we've got some guys who are playing out of position, at least in my opinion. Like Nico Hines, I think is going to be a great halfback, but I think he's going to need this season to sort of get comfortable. So in terms of them pushing for the top 4, that seems to be a bit of a popular opinion. I don't think they're going to push for the top 4. I think when you take on those top clubs, I think they will struggle a little bit. In terms of the 4-pack, they haven't really signed anybody. And they got Fanuc in there. McInnes has not played in a long time. And even then, he's known as a hooker. Now, I know he did play a little bit of lock for the Dragons, and he was alright. He was a pretty good tackler, but it's like now they've signed him, and they're like, wow, we've got this absolute gun 13. And it's like, where has he actually been a gun 13? He played alright when Ben Hunt took his spot. Ben Hunt literally took his spot. They shifted McInnes, who was the captain of the club, because Ben Hunt was way better than him at hooker. That is just the fact. That's just a fact. It is. So McInnes, on paper, is a decent signing, and I would have loved him at the Bulldogs or any other club, but he just come off a season-ending injury. Not season-ending injury, literally did not play the whole season. So he's had a whole season off. He's coming back from a pretty bad injury, and he's now going to be shifting positions, essentially. And then also got Dal Finucane. He is going from lock to prop. So in this day and age, basically playing the same role, but was just another number. I really like Dal Finucane, but in terms of the rest of the forward pack, they're pretty much the same. They actually do have a pretty decent forward pack to start off with, but just in terms of there being a major difference between last year's side and this year's side, apart from a bit of experience, like Sean Johnson at his best, is he as good as Nico Hines in the number 7? I would say so. In fact, I'd probably say Sean Johnson is probably better. Obviously, in terms of staying on the park, it's a different matter, but Nico Hines being their big signing, I just can't see him taking them from where they already are into the top 4. It's more so due to the fact that I think the top 4, even top 5, are very, very solid and very hard to beat. So I think the Sharks are going to be a very good side, and I think Nico Hines is going to be very good for them. But just in terms of them pushing into the top 4, I just don't see it happening. Now we move on to 5th position. This is going to be a very, very controversial one, but I'm actually going with the premiers from 2021, the Penrith Panthers. Now, Nathan Cleary isn't there to start the season. Is he going to have an injury-riddled season? Hopefully not. I actually think it's a good chance to get in the Dally M if he ends up playing quite a bit. But in terms of the Penrith side, what I saw in the trials, I didn't necessarily like. And if Nathan Cleary is not there, the Panthers aren't there. Now, that's obvious for a lot of sides. If you take out the best player, they are going to struggle a lot. But they have lost a lot of other good players as well. They've lost both their centers. Momorowski and Burton are both gone. So therefore, your depth is also gone there as well, because Burton was your backup half. Tyrone May's gone. Whether you like him or not, he's another player who's gone. And obviously, Kurt Capewell is another big, big loss as well. So that sort of forces Liam Martin into the starting side, and then it weakens your bench a lot. And going from a side, they got quite lucky against the Rabbitohs. They got the win, but they weren't dominant by any means. And Nathan Cleary had one of the better games of his career, and they still weren't dominant. And even throughout the final series, they really struggled to score points. And yeah, I'm sitting here talking about them winning, but just in terms of the general, just the normal season, and you add in Origin as well, I've got to take that into account when I'm doing the 1 to 16. I think they are going to get affected by State of Origin quite a bit. Even guys like Abby Coruscant, guys who you don't think of straight away for like, all right, they're going to be in the starting side for New South Wales, but they're going to be in amongst the side. If there's any injuries, they're probably going to be in it. Another guy like Stephen Crichton, Brian Tyer's obviously going to be playing. I think they are going to get affected at Origin. They did last year. They're going to do it this year as well. So I think that's how they end up in 5th. Not necessarily because they are the 5th worst side or number 5, whatever, but I think because of State of Origin, I think they're going to fall down the ladder. Now we move on to the exciting times. We're going to be talking about the top 4. So at number 4, I have Tommy Turbo, also known as the Manly Warringah Seagulls. Now, I believe I said the same sort of thing last year. Said I was talking about Wooden Spoon. Instead, they ended up in the top 4. And I think they'll end up in the top 4 again. And honestly, I think they'll probably get found out again by the top 4 sides. I feel like they'll just absolutely pummel the bottom, the bottom 12 sides. I think they'll absolutely pummel them. But when they come up against the better sides, I think they will sort of be found out. But in terms of the ladder, I think that ends up with them in the top 4. I think they might get lucky against some of these sides. So I don't see them winning a minor premiership or anything, but I do see them getting in the top 4. Tonch Boyovich is too good. We've got Cherry Evans there. Kieran Foran's been pretty good for them. Even in terms of the outside backs, they look to be finding some decent little young centers and such. But the forward pack, like Marty Tapau's okay these days. Olakawatu is still there. Actually, I think he's out for a little bit as well. So they do have some injuries to start the season. So that sort of goes with them not being a minor premiership threat, but still being in the top 4. And also Origin there as well. They're going to be missing quite a few players. So I do have Manly in at number 4. And number 3, I do have a team that a lot of people have actually taking out the com, or at least taking out the minor premiership. But I have the Melbourne Storm. Now, I think to start the season, I think they'll probably come out pretty fired up. Obviously, a couple guys suspended. And I think they probably will get some injuries, obviously. Cameron Munster. I think they're sort of banking on the fact that Cameron Munster is off the booze. Therefore, Melbourne are going to be absolutely done. But I do think there is going to be some disruptions. Obviously, Addo Carr leaving, Finucane leaving, Nico Hines leaving. I think you got to take that into account, despite how good Craig Bellamy is, in terms of them just moving from where they were last year and then all of a sudden being this absolutely unbeatable side. I know they were during the regular season, but in terms of the finals, they looked nowhere near it against Penrith. And I know they were very off, but they had a very off season, and I can see that leading to some problems during the regular season in 2022. Maybe not immediately, but I feel like at some point with players leaving, they've already had players leaving, but with some of the guys like Brandon Smith leaving, I feel like something's got to give with them. And I know every year we talk about the Storm having a downfall, and it seems funny that last year they got the minor premiership and absolutely destroyed it, and here I'm talking about a downfall from them going from first to third. But in terms of the Storm getting the minor premiership, which is what a lot of people are predicting, I just don't see it. But yeah, on paper for Melbourne, they have a very, very strong side. But is it a better side than last year? I don't think so, and they didn't win a premiership last year, and I think there are some sides who have gotten better this year who are going to be ahead of them, and that leads us to number 2. I've already talked about number 1, so you already know who number 2 is, and that is the Sydney Roosters. Now, they are my picks to take out the whole comp. I think the Roosters are going to end up winning the grand final. I think they have enough big game experience, and I think the squad that they've got is absolutely outstanding. Now, I think at some point, some of you guys like Kiri, Tedesco, even just through Origin, that's where I can't put the Roosters in at number 1, because I think at Origin they will get absolutely destroyed. Same as Melbourne, same as Penrith, same as also Manly as well, take out Turbo. But I think the Roosters are going to be absolutely destroyed at State of Origin with a lot of players in their squad. Actually, not even a lot of players, but I think you take out Tedesco from that side, take out Radley, you take out possibly Sam Walker, possibly Luke Keary, even a Daniel Tupou. Either they will lose nobody or they'll lose a heap of people. Just depends on how their season goes. So the Roosters, they are my pick to come in at number 2, which obviously I already talked about number 1, which is the Parramatta Eels. So going off 1 and 2, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the grand final. I don't necessarily think that reflects who is the best side and who's number 2. But at the same time, like I feel like that is sort of a decent little prediction. I mean, the Roosters, everybody knows they're going to be better than last year, and they nearly made the top 4 last year. Teams like Penrith, it's super hard to back up, and that goes for the Rabbitohs as well. So you'd expect them to drop off a little bit. Manly haven't really signed anyone, they haven't really lost anyone, so no reason for them to drop out of the top 4. And then the Eels, they looked really good in the finals. They looked like the only side who could really beat Penrith, and did get quite unlucky to beat Penrith. And I think Mitchell Moses is ready to step up. I think Dylan Brown's ready to step up. I can see them getting a top 4. But to be fair, they're also a side I could see really flopping hard, especially with all the players leaving. So, I don't know, that's why these ladder predictions are so hard, especially before we've seen a ball kicked. So, look, leave in the comment section below, what is your 1 to 16? What is your ladder prediction? I love doing these sort of videos, however, they are quite controversial. All it takes is just chucking one team in the wrong position and everybody hates you. But that's just how things are. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure to use the notification bell. Don't rely on the sub boxes. Use the notification bell and never miss any of my videos. Also, while you're at it, go ahead and give me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. My Facebook's Mr. Luke, but everything else, including Snapchat, including TikTok, is Mr. Luke and YT. Give me a follow, give me an ad. And stay tuned for more content on the channel. NRL season is just about here. Going to be doing some more predictions. I'm going to actually predict things on Rugby League Live 4. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next one. See yous.